Very good evening and welcome to Punchline. I am Ann Kiguta. Tonight on the program, we focus on runaway corruption, or is it runaway corruption allegations? We'll zoom in on the EACC in another cat and mouse chase with Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru. And we will ask tonight whether we'll finally be getting answers as MCA's vow another impeachment is on the way. And as the outreach continues over alleged corruption at Kemsa in a scheme to loot COVID-19 funds, where do we go now as Kenya reaches a critical moment in the fight against corruption and impunity? Well, we are talking tonight with councillors Ndegwa Njiru and Charles Kanjama in studio. And a little later in the program. Tonight, I'm still proudly wearing Rivertex made in Kenya. This is a company that is critical to Kenya's industrialization and manufacturing plans. Well, we'll be speaking to Rivertex MD, Professor I beg your pardon, that's a professor tonight who will be telling us more about what is happening at Rivertex, why it's important to the country's industrialization plans, and of course, if they are heading on a path of profitability. That and much more is coming up. A look at our top stories tonight.
Through a commission of inquiry, we will get to understand why is there always a problem in the health sector.
President Uhuru Kenyatta urged to form a commission of inquiry to ensure that beneficiaries of COVID-19 funds are brought to book.
Waongo kwanza, wazinzi, wanaoabudu sanamu, alafu na waoga, hawaendi mbinguni.
The battle is not for the faint-hearted, Deputy President says, as he dares opponents ahead of 2022 presidential race. Kenya's race to acquiring the COVID-19 vaccine once ready is firmly on course, Ministry of Health affirms. And on Punchline tonight, corruption. We probe the Anne Waiguru saga and Kemsa underhand dealings.
Thanks for staying with us. Professor Thomas Kipkuragat will be with us on the program from Rivertex. But we begin tonight with politics, and Deputy President William Ruto says he will not succumb to threats and intimidation by his political opponents ahead of the 2022 general election. In an apparent swipe at what he calls the system, the DP said no single individual or organization will decide who will be president, declaring that Kenyans will have the final say.
Deputy President William Ruto on Sunday vowed to remain unshaken in his bid for the 2022 presidency, saying he will not yield to political threats ordering him to stand down. In the recent past, the DP has claimed that a section of leaders within the government was planning to crush him politically, an allegation that has caused a political storm across the country.
Vitisho imekuwa mingi Kenya hii. Wewe ukionekana namna hii utapelekwa kwa DCI. Wewe ukifanya hii utapelekwa kwa sijui EACC. Ukiwa salamia fulani unawekewa kesi. So watu wengine wanaingiza uoga.
The DP, who was addressing grassroots leaders from 13 counties drawn from the Kikuyu community at his Sugoi home after the Sunday service, went further to claim that some leaders were doing everything possible to hijack the Jubilee agenda for Kenyans, but urged the party's members to remain steadfast and ignore their detractors.
Na ndio nilikuwa nawakumbusha maneno ya Biblia iko Ufunuo 21 mstari wa 8 ambayo inasema waongo waongo kwanza, wazinzi, wanaoabudu sanamu, alafu na waoga, hawaendi mbinguni. Sasa ukikubali kuwekwa uoga Kenya ya saa hii, utakosa ya dunia na utakosa ufalme wa mbinguni. So watu wajihadhari sana.
The DP had early in the day taken to his Twitter account where he told of the ODM party for defending COVID-19 billions looters, saying it was now clear that their interest in the handshake was to loot public coffers. Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro Walin Muranga joined DP Ruto in condemning the opposition party for seeming to defend the stealing of COVID-19 billion.
Nikaona kuna watu walijitokeza na wakaanza kusema ya kwamba hakuna pesa ilikuwa imeibwa katika Kemsa. Na pia hiyo ni chama ya ODM. Walitoa press conference jana. Mimi ningetaka nikemee corruption in any form katika nchi ya Kenya. Na kwanza kuiba dawa, kuiba pesa ambayo ni ya maneno ya health. I don't think there is any level of immorality that we can be said more than that. Na kwa hivyo sio vizuri sana tuomne chama ambayo hapo beleni ilikuwa inapigana na ufisadi. Wakijitokeza ndio sasa wanatetea wafisadi.
The leaders rubbish the notion that the so-called system would decide the next regime, saying it is the people of Kenya who have the ultimate power to decide their leaders come 2022. Give us Mana for Punchline.
ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi has called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to set up an inquiry into the alleged misappropriation of funds at the Ministry of Health. He spoke even as the Kenya Union of Nurses Secretary General Seth Panyako accused top ODM officials of being part of the Kemsa scandal after the party dismissed the allegations of graft at the medical authority. Ben Kirera tells us more.
With health services across the country at the verge of paralysis owing to the alleged COVID-19 funds misappropriation, leaders from various political parties have now weighed in the saga.
Mr. President,
those cartels within Orange Democratic Party,
leaving Kenyans with hope for justice.
the situation, Mr. President, is dire. In the midst of this terror, some have found in our tribulations a source of profiteering through theft, fraudulent procurement schemes, and grossly inflated prices. They need to be stopped.
Amani National Congress party leader Musalia Mudavadi has decried the inhumane act of unidentified individuals making fortunes at the expense of safety of Kenyans. This he said as he called on the head of state to make a judicial intervention.
The only appropriate mechanism via which to get to the bottom of what is ailing the health sector is for the President to appoint a judicial commission of inquiry. This will help the President to stamp executive authority on the fight against corruption or graft with finality, and underline this, and then deflate the lingering insinuations that he is a reluctant fighter of corruption.
On the other hand, Kenya Union of Nurses Secretary General Seth Panyako has accused ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna for being used to defend corrupt individuals, noting that ODM could be part of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority Kemsa scandal.
Sifuna anasema chama cha ODM kimefanya uchunguzi, kimesema kwamba hakuna ufisadi katika Kemsa. Nataka kuuliza Raila Amolo Odinga aambie wananchi wa Kenya ikiwa kama yeye ndiye alimduma Sifuna, kwa sababu kila mbu anayepwega ako na mwenye mmiliki.
Coming a day after the party dismissed the graft allegations.
Sifuna, you are not EACC. You are not DCIO. You are not the police. You are not Transparent International. You are nothing.
Panyako insists that aside from having tangible evidence of illegal acquisition of tenders at Kemsa by ODM officials, the leaders should not bring politics in the investigation, which should have the perpetrators prosecuted.
Na kama hutasema, tutajua wewe ndio ulimtuma Sifuna. Na tunajua sasa wewe na wenzako ndio tutasema kwamba chama cha ODM ndio wameiba Kemsa.
This was echoed by ANC's Musalia Mudavadi, who termed ODM's dismissal corruption claims in the procurement of COVID-19 equipment by Kemsa as a mischievous proposition.
I condemn this blatant theft of emergency resources. It is not only a recipe for failure of the Big Four agenda, but will also certainly deny the President a coveted legacy.
Evangelical church leaders also outlined the risk that the country's health sector will face upon withdrawal of COVID-19 funds, as well as the 400 billion Kenya shillings meant to cushion HIV and AIDS patients, as well as malaria and tuberculosis, among other life-saving interventions.
That is how costly the theft of public resources can be. And the question we are asking ourselves is, how long are we going to keep quiet? And a few men and a few women are stealing money that is supposed to have helped the Kenyans.
Ben Kerera, K24, Punchline.
Now, Kenya is still on course in its pursuit for a COVID-19 vaccine, with Health Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Rashid Aman saying that the government is reaching out to countries that are currently developing the vaccine, China being among them. This comes even as WHO affirmed that once ready, doses of the COVID-19 vaccine will be allocated proportionally to all participating countries simultaneously to reduce the overall risk.
Kenya's quest to secure a COVID-19 vaccine from countries that are developing the vaccine is still on course, with Ministry of Health confirming that indeed it is developing a framework that will see Kenya become one of the beneficiaries.
There are already discussions within that framework of Gavi to be able to make sure that some of these new vaccines, that developing countries will not be left out in the race for these vaccines when they become available. And there are mechanisms that are being discussed on how these vaccines will be availed to countries, developing countries, Kenya included.
In phase 2, consideration will be given to countries in relation to threat and vulnerability.
As cases continue to rise in Kenya, 246 cases were recorded out of 4,179 tests in the last 24 hours, and 6 more succumbing to the virus, with Aman reiterating on the need for increased vigilance in keeping the virus at bay.
I don't think as a world we can adjust to a new normal. I think we want to go back to our normal. But to get back to our normal, we need to at least continue to observe the measures that have been put in place, not relent, protect ourselves and protect others.
A further 217 patients have recovered from COVID-19 disease in the last 24 hours, with 179 being from the home-based care. While losing taste and smell is associated with viral infections, those suffering from COVID-19 may experience the same over a prolonged period.
Those senses will come back. It could be that the virus is affecting some of those cells, these sensory cells that are responsible for taste and smell. Some of them, if you know smell, we are talking about the nasal system. We also know the virus invades the nasal system, so there could be some relationship there.
With the country still on a discovery journey of the nature of the virus, a study published by the Harvard neuroscientist indicated that when one gets a cold, the mucus composition changes, resulting to a stuffy nose, a condition that is resolved when the inflammation fades away. This, however, is not the case when it comes to COVID-19.
We know that there are people who have recovered from the disease in terms of not being able to demonstrate any virus, but they continue to be weak and have problems months and months after the infection. We know that there are people who have the virus, they recover clinically from the disease, but when you test them for the virus, you keep finding the virus. And how many have we seen who have been tested 5-6 times for almost 60 days before?
Martin Opio for Punchline.
And time for us to take a short break on Punchline. On the other side of this break, we get into our discussion. Starting us off, Rivertex MD Professor Thomas Kipkurgat will be talking about the president's plans in manufacturing and industrialization, and how critical Rivertex, a company which, as you know, has been through the rough of it and is now trying to emerge on the other side, is to the president's Big Four agenda. And after that, corruption. If President Kenyatta is serious on taking action, then what should we be seeing? I'm speaking to Councillors Ndegwa Njiro and Charles Kanjama after the break. Stay with us.